What secrets do these people know that are used by the greatest minds?
Steve Jobs apparently had only one book on his iPad, The Autobiography of a Yogi.
Yogananda happens to be what I would call a spiritual prodigy.
I heard about this ancient tradition used by the world's greatest minds and had to know more. I was skeptical, but I was also searching for answers. I had to see for myself what this was all about and whether their ancient wisdom could truly offer a solution to the modern world. My journey led me to Palo Alto and to the woman at the heart of this community. I went to speak with Asha Swami, a spiritual director of Ananda and an expert on Yogananda's teachings.
I'm Asha Swami, and we are sitting in the Ananda Temple of Self-Realization in the city of Palo Alto, California.
Whilst I was walking through here, I saw Steve Jobs on the wall. We're in, or around where sort of Steve Jobs,
Silicon Valley is where we are. Steve Jobs, he was devoted to Paramhansa Yogananda. He was devoted to Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi. Almost everyone who moves out of the mainstream looking for spiritual understanding finds Yogananda's autobiography. Not everyone dedicates their life to helping to share that message, but countless individuals, virtually everyone who ever steps out of the mainstream in the spiritual world ends up being inspired by Yogananda. Steve Jobs was an extremely now well-known and dramatic example of that. He said he read Autobiography of a Yogi once a year, every year, after he found it for the first time, which was when he was a young man before he became Steve Jobs. And he felt very strongly that everything that he was able to accomplish was inspired by Yogananda's inner presence and the intuitive guidance that he received from him. And when he died, at his funeral, he passed out to everyone who came a copy of Autobiography of a Yogi. And we thought it's worth knowing, because otherwise people draw a very narrow idea of what it means to be spiritually inspired, of what it means to be devoted to a great master, of how intuition and divine inspiration work. We don't have the imagination that the masters do to know how multifaceted the development of consciousness is. And he kind of forces you to just think completely differently about everything.
As a spiritual guide to hundreds of thousands online and a lifetime devotee to this path, I wanted to understand the source of her wisdom. Paramahansa Yogananda is the revered guru who journeyed from India to America in the 1920s. He is credited with sparking a spiritual revolution in the West, helping billions of people across the world achieve what is called self-realization. But what does that actually mean? And how has this principle helped millions of people achieve fulfillment in their lives?
Yoga is not magic, sword swallowing or crystal gazing, but it's the art of super living as discovered by the ancient sages of India in 1500 BC. If the Western brothers only could learn the methods of the yogis, then they would learn to live 100 years in perfect health, happiness, and great success.
Paramhansa Yogananda. He died in 1952. He came to America in 1920 from India, spent his whole teaching life in the West, in California, actually. It's the 60s. All the teachers are coming from India. It's the huge scene in San Francisco, which is just 30 miles from here. And Swami Kriyananda, who has an Indian name but is an American, is a direct disciple of Paramhansa Yogananda. Some fraternity over at Stanford thinks, well, wouldn't it be cool to invite a Swami? He walked into the room, I saw him. Inside of me, this voice said, he has what I want. I mean, I don't know where that voice came from. He has what I want. I do not know how I knew. He hadn't spoken a word.
Light and shadow dancing together. That's how I see this universe. But as you go inside, it's very strong, but very mild. That light wraps me all over. And that light is so wonderful, the light of all light. The light that lights the candle, that lights the atoms, lights my speech, lights my voice, lights the souls of you all. I see the galaxy of souls coming out of that light.
Of all Yogananda's teachings, perhaps none is more compelling or misunderstood than the concept of manifestation. I wanted to know more. How could this practice help the average person navigate their life? I wasn't expecting her to take me on a philosophical journey that would start with a single thought and end with the potential to influence my very fabric of reality.
I think so. The conversation I wanted to have was around some of the themes of like manifestation, magnetism, vibrations.
Okay, a lot of people use vocabulary to describe things, but we're really talking about a flow of energy. The way Paramahansa Yogananda put it is that thoughts are universal. They're not actually generated from within us. I don't really generate my own thoughts, I receive them. And what I am, in simplistic terms, if we could talk about the cosmic science of creation, what I am is like a radio receiver. And all throughout creation, there are many different vibrations of consciousness. We're very limited in the vibrations that we can see. Even science talks about how there's many more colors and things that we just can't see, but they're right there. So they get a machine that's better as being a machine than our body is, and they perceive these realities, which are right in the room, but we just can't receive them. I know radio is not as common a concept as it used to be, but nonetheless, we still understand it. In this room, if we had the right receiver, we could receive, let's talk just about podcasts or anything that people know. You're sitting here, you have a machine that is capable of receiving and amplifying, but the podcast was already in the room. The radio program was already in the room. Nothing changed geographically, but what changed was your capacity to perceive. And so the universe exists on many different vibratory levels. And according to what our own receptivity is, whatever station we're tuned to, we receive that program. But the art of meditation is actually learning basically to change the radio station. And you can shift over to a whole nother dimension of inspiration.
What do you say to the people who are like, I go to work every day, but my boss is a tyrant, he hates me, he's always making me do stuff I don't want to do, I hate my job. Like, what would you say to people like that?
I would say, how is that attitude working out for you? And you can't make your boss better, and you probably can't live without working. So do we want to just get more and more miserable as time passes? Or is there any place in this story that you could think that maybe I could turn it? So where in your life can you just do something that's expansive? And how can your boss is a tyrant? Is there anybody in your work that you can love and that you can serve? Is there, where can you move it? People just want to move the whole thing all at once, and they think if they can't lift the mountain, there's nothing to do. Just make an herb garden. I mean, where in your life can you begin to change the tone? You might not be able to do it with your boss. What about your dog? Can you be nicer to your dog? Can you be nicer to your plants? How about your wife? What about your mother-in-law? Because when it's all pervasive, it's got lots of tentacles. So you train yourself to be nicer to your dog on a consistent basis. And then you learn how to be nice. And then you're just a tiny bit nicer everywhere. You do a little bit better than your worst. You put out a little more energy. I'm a lousy housekeeper. I don't like dealing with my house. And I'm an old woman now, and I've always managed to have someone else clean it. That's just great for me. But I will do the dishes. But I won't always do them before I go to bed. But I like to put out a little more energy, so I'll stack them in the sink. Because that's a little better than my worst. And if you just make it a habit to be a little nicer and a little better than your worst, to put out a little more energy every time, you'll change your whole life.
Inside, you said you used the word entrepreneur. I'm curious in what context you meant.
Well, we're sitting in this patio of this beautiful temple. We're inside the temple. Over in this other building over here, there's there's a whole Ananda school called Living Wisdom School. Another location, there's Living Wisdom High School. We have a community. We also have a beautiful big bookstore, a book and gift store in another part of the area here. None of this existed in this form. And we had the embryo of it. We had a small store, and we had a very small center. Other people started it. And I and my companions in all of this, we just step by step tuned in, put out the energy, prayed deeply, followed our intuition, and just built it up like that. Oh, I know the other part of it. You have to constantly ask. Your intuitive prayer has to be every day. I was involved in a project that lasted for 18 months. It was a very big project. Even when it wasn't going our way, I was still affirming that we were going to continue. And Swami Kriyananda just one day just pulled the plug. He stopped the project, and I was full blast into the wall, and he just stopped for good reason. He was correct. But at the same time, I said, why? Why are we stopping? He said, well, I prayed this morning, and I felt Master Yogananda telling me that you've done enough. It shouldn't go forward from this point. I said, I'm the one doing the project. Why didn't he tell me? Swami said, did you ask? I said, no. And then he just went, what did you expect? I just assumed, despite all the obstacles, that I was just supposed to push through, and I never stopped and really centered myself and said, okay, new development, new direction, or am I supposed to continue?
I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that journey at the start is so difficult, the deciphering whether to keep going and if it's a worthy cause versus just bashing your head against the wall. It's really hard to make out.
And there's no dogma that'll save you, but you have to practice when it's easier, you see. You have to have been, from the beginning, you have to have been trying to tune in, you have to have been praying, you have to try to be an instrument of a higher vision, you have to be attentive that you don't get yourself wrapped up in it in a way that's not wholesome, so that as the stakes escalate, you have some muscle that you can apply to a deeper question. And that's the part that I hadn't done. But if you're merely eager for truth, eager for inspiration, you don't have to personify it in any particular way, because it is personal, but it's also completely impersonal. Give me beautiful music, help me to help the world. The more selfless, the more expansive your thinking, the more subtle your ideas. And going back to Steve Jobs, as I said, I don't know him personally, so I don't know what exactly he was asking, but he was self-evidently born to create something that was going to have a magnificent effect on the planet. So however his little conscious self articulated that, because what we think and what we say about ourselves is often a very superficial layer from who we actually are. Clearly, he was committed to revolution of a most dynamic and interesting kind. And so that commitment to that revolution and the willingness to work very hard and have fun working hard, and the confidence that he had in his own ideas, all of those things tuned his radio to the point where Yogananda and the other great masters who guide this world, he was vibrating in such a way that they could reach him. And It doesn't come in like, lo, I, Yogananda, say, make the iPhone. You know, that's sort of the narrow idea we have. It just occurs to him that this would be a good idea. And it's only when we become more aware, we ask the question, where do our thoughts come from? There are universal vibrations of consciousness that we can tune into. Love, peace, joy, anger, revenge. You know, they're universal states. If you are consciously trying to receive from a higher source, then naturally that magnetizes more specific energy that would be inspiring and receptive to you, attuned, harmonious with who you are. You know, that's manifesting, how you make things happen. You know, one of the ways also to communicate, because if you have if you're following specific masters, people tend to think you're sectarian or that you're narrow in your thinking. So, and we're not, because self-realization is not religion. Self-realization is experience, it's life. So Yogananda did this also. We put the symbols of other religions up on the walls of the temple, so when you walk in, you'll realize, you know, what's really happening here. And that's helped, you know, because otherwise it's confusing. People don't understand that commitment is not narrow. It depends on what you're committed to. If you're committed to unity of all religions, and even though you're following one master who's taking you there, it's not sectarian. It's a little tricky. We've had a little, you know, to try to get people to understand it. It's the unifying principle that makes all of them the same, as we were talking about before. So it's not like we practice all of these, but self-realization is the what do we say, the way of awakening.
So that's why do not in any way be a slave to the senses. Do not in any way be trapped by the senses. All the senses were given that you may be their master.
To truly progress, you next have to redefine your entire understanding of self and explore the purpose of life. This raised immediate questions for me. How does one tap into this universal power? What separates wishful thinking from true, intentional creation? And crucially, how can we ensure our intentions are aligned with a divine and higher purpose, rather than just selfish desire? I had to know.
Self-mastery. It's like, it's not really that my boss is awful, it's that I can't master my reaction to my boss. And so I'm not a slave of my boss. I'm a slave of my reaction to my boss. You see, this is the transition, the directional transition between thinking that the problem originates out there and realizing that the solution is in here. He may be a terrible boss, but him being a terrible boss just makes him miserable unless your reaction makes you miserable. So it's you that you can't control. And you think if you made him better, then I would stop reacting, but that's a myth. And we try that, I'm just going to get the world in order and then I'll be happy. I'm just going to get money, I'm just going to be famous, I'm just going to do this, and then I'll be happier. No, actually, you will be happier when you are able to have mastery over your reactions to what happens to you.
A large portion of the viewers of this show, we have hundreds of thousands of different messages coming our way every single day. And I don't know if it's because it's true and it's something that I need to do, or if it is just another thing, you know, that I'd be chasing because I think for a lot of people, because some influencer told us to do it online, or does that make sense? Like,
perfect sense. I mean, nowadays, it's just, you're overwhelmed. Okay, so you have to be authentically yourself. It's not like a straight line, like we're all lined up like in a marathon and we just run out like this. It's, if you think of it more, it's like the rim of a wheel. We're all arrayed around the rim of the wheel, doing what we're doing. I'm a fanatic, I'm a lazy bum, I'm a thief, I'm pretending to be saintly, you know, whatever. We're just arrayed out there. The balance, the point we're trying to reach is the center, which you might say is, you know, the inner self, or the spiritual eye. I mean, there's all different ways to say it, but we're becoming bigger. oddly enough, because the more you go to the center, the wider your view of the wheel is, until when you're finally in the center, you can access the whole thing. But if you're timid, you need to, show a little spunk and get mad sometimes. So you have to head north, let's say. If you're nothing but an angry man, you have to calm down, so you have to go south. And so north and south meet each other and they argue about who should go where, which is the, quote, right direction. But it depends on where you are. If you really look at your life, every single decision you make is because you think it's going to increase your happiness and decrease your suffering. Many of those decisions are absolutely stupid in retrospect. But at the time, you thought it would increase your happiness and decrease your suffering. And the phrase I always say to myself is, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. And it may have been the right thing to do because it was so wrong that you will actually learn something. And by wrong, all I mean is it will not bring you happiness. It will increase your suffering. And that's the template. And no matter how many opinions you have about what reality ought to be, reality always wins. It's very important to realize that. Work as hard as you can to deny it, to break the laws of the way that you're made. Insist on anything you want. Reality always wins. We only ever act in a way that we think is going to alleviate our suffering and bring us happiness. Otherwise, we would never do it. Just analyze yourself. Our understanding may be so stupid, and our actions may be so different. The consequences may be so different than we expect, but it always seemed like a good idea at the time, or we wouldn't have done it.
On the flip side of it, could we, the feeling of helping other people, like it's such a wonderful, fulfilling feeling. But is there any downside to doing too much of that? Or investing too much into that?
Well, it's all a question of authenticity. It's all a question of being actually in tune with a higher vibration, a higher level of guidance, rather than just compulsively trying either to earn your own value or trying to fix the world, or just getting too embroiled in ways that are spinning too much about, even though you're being selfless because of me. I mean, you're being selfless for your own reason. That's quite different than being an instrument of the light and just trying to uplift. And it's a stage on the journey. You start out with a truly altruistic desire, and then you get a little too identified with being altruistic, and then you get a little confused. And so everything is course correction. You have to just keep going. But the end of true freedom is self-forgetfulness. We think it's self-perfection. We think we're going to just absolutely get myself in order and I'll do everything right and I'll never have a bad thought, just whatever. And we make ourselves crazy and we become totally self-preoccupied, which is the exact opposite of just letting go of this little identification and identifying with the great flow. It's just self-forgetfulness. It's just, I don't even remember that I have a separate identity. I'm just the flow of energy of what I'm doing. The book I'm writing, the meal I'm cooking, the people I'm enjoying, whatever it might be. It's just a flow of energy, and isn't it wonderful? And when I was 18, and I got the book by Yogananda, which was the first spiritual thing I read, he said, don't think about yourself and you'll be happy. That was one of the aphorisms that really struck me. I thought, what else is there to think about? Okay, here's the story. When I moved into this room, which is now more than 15 years ago, this was all mirrors, where it isn't now, where I have aphorisms and quotes that are meaningful to me. If, we are a field of energy moving through a body, and we're trying to expand our self-definition beyond the mere material. If you constantly are looking at your own face and looking at your own body, it constantly affirms to you that that's who you are. And we make bathrooms and bedrooms with these huge mirrors, so every time you turn around, you're looking at yourself. And it occurred to me, I don't want to look at myself. I'm not that interesting. I can look at a little tiny mirror and make sure I'm not an eyesore. But when I covered the mirrors, which I started doing 50 years ago, I can go through a whole day without ever really remembering my face and my physical body. I just become a field of energy moving through. It has been amazing to me.
So when you think of yourself, what comes to mind?
I try not to think of myself. I mean, self-forgetfulness is the essence of spirituality. We think self-perfection is the essence, but it isn't. It's you just totally forget about yourself. I mean, it's just like, not only do you bump into yourself every once in a while, but you cannot get away from yourself. And I don't think it's helping us. And this doesn't even take into account people's negative body images, their concern about aging, their constant criticism of their appearance. We haven't even touched that, which is a whole nother piece of it, right? I'm just talking about self-identity. And then people come over, especially sometimes I'm out of town and people stay in this room and they'll always comment about the mirrors. And I think, oh yeah, sure, that's right. Yeah. Why would I want that? I had a job for a couple of years. I was running the retreat kitchen. I was cooking for 30 or more people, 40, 50, sometimes even very large groups. 3 meals a day, 6 days a week. I cooked 3 meals a day for all those people. On the 7th day, I drove a big truck into town and filled it with groceries and drove it back to our place. I was never happier. Somebody actually said to me, "How are you?" And I was startled, because I was so just into the flow of doing what I was doing that I just forgot to ask, how am I doing? I was just doing it, and that was my first taste. That was real freedom. That was when I began to figure out, oh, I've got this whole thing wrong. This is how you do it. You serve, you love, you flow, you're dynamic, and then that becomes you. That's the most incredible thing. That's who you become. Ego, the way Yogananda defined it, ego is the infinite self identified with limitation. And so the ego thinks that I am the body, that I am the things that I'm doing, the things I possess, the power I have over the world, the sensual enjoyments I have, that my sense of self is identified with the limited aspect of my nature. I don't see myself as a transcendent being, as one with the infinite, as a child of God. I don't live in that definition. So what he's saying is, we are all waves on the infinite sea, and we're never separate from the greater reality, but a wave can give the appearance of being separate. And so if we lose touch with the force that's bringing the wave up and the substance of which the wave is made, and then we just get at the tip of the wave and think that that's all that there is, that's ego, because that's the ocean itself defined by this little tiny bit of water at the top. And among other things, inevitably that wave is going to go down. So no matter how hard you try to stay at the apex of the wave, you're doomed, because sooner or later the wave will collapse. But if you know yourself to be one with the infinite ocean, and even though you're enjoying the ride up as the wave and you're doing all the things that you do in your human physical incarnation, you're not egoic about it, because you know that you're just an expression of the ocean, and therefore you don't feel like you have been destroyed when the wave goes back into the ocean. And also, you have so much more, you have limitless energy to draw from, because if you only think that you're the tip, you don't know where it's coming from. But if you can always also know that everything that manifested this wave is the whole ocean of which I am a part, then for one thing, your power is unlimited and your freedom is unlimited, because what am I afraid of? What do I have to lose? You know, how could I be lost? But if I'm just the tip and the tip is absorbed back in, then I panic. I panic when my circumstances change. I panic when I die. I panic when other people die. And that is the ego that has limited myself to a very vulnerable entity, completely unnecessarily. So that's why the image works so beautifully all the time.
With that being said then, so why is the ego, is the enemy
being invested in the ego, not
the enemy is being defined by limitation. And it's not the fact, and so you don't want to be at war with yourself and say, oh, well, it's just ego. No, it could be divine inspiration coming through you. But if you are defined by the infinite energy which flows through you and expresses uniquely as you, and you can see that exists, that limited reality also exists. My ego is my individuality, but I'm not defined by it. It's that I am a great ocean of spirit, and the water of the ocean has come up into this beautiful wave, and I am the wave, but I am not only the wave. Just as simple as that.
Praise does not make me better, not blame makes me less. I am what I am before my conscience, before the true souls that think of me and know me as I am.
It's clear when you are with Asha that you are in the presence of profound wisdom. She began to explain philosophy of rewiring the mind to align with the universe itself. As our conversations deepened, we moved into territory that challenged the very foundations of Western thought, concepts so powerful they could change the way you see the world.
What's the difference between consciousness and superconsciousness?
Well, there's three basic levels: subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. And they're somewhat distinct areas. Subconscious has psychological meanings, which are true, but in this context, I use it differently. Subconscious is everything that you already are, including all your past lives. Everything that is already behind you, that has become your habitual fallback, this is who I am. It's neither expansive nor creative. It's not particularly courageous. It's not original. It just repeats. Conscious level is what we normally are when we're awake. But we're always being influenced, so we can be wide awake but still be influenced by subconscious or superconscious. But conscious is more shared. We're still not unified, but it's a lot easier. If we all go to Hawaii, we might come back with different stories, but it's clear that we're all in the same place. And so we live in our conscious where it's more energetic. And then the superconscious above it is where our consciousness expands in an ever-opening arc, you might say. And there's just no limit. We go up into ever higher dimensions. We separate. Our identity is no longer bound by the brain and by the body that we're in. And we're no longer bound by all the experiences that we had before. We're completely open to entirely new realities. That's where great art comes from. That's where true inspiration comes from. That's where pure love comes from. And that's where self-sacrificing kind of love comes from, because you're just spreading out everything that's new. And the conscious level is the battleground between these two forces. A part of us, a part of who I am, is my superconscious. It's always whispering to me, oh, you could be more than you are. You could be more joyful than you are. You could be more forgiving. You could be more loving. You don't have to be afraid. You could serve. You could give. And my subconscious says, oh, that would be hard. I don't want to do that. They betrayed me before. They're just going to betray me again. Why would I risk it? Superconscious says, please, come ahead, try. And the conscious mind is just battling. I mean, it's the angel and the devil in a very real sense, sitting on our two shoulders, our angelic, expansive, and our limited side. And so but the superconscious kind of whispers. That's the problem. It speaks intuitively. It doesn't blast out at you. And we have to be interested in hearing. And the more we respond, the more we open that channel. And when you do creative work, I mean, when you're really in a creative flow, it's the superconscious. It's telling you something new. Or sometimes we're creative, but we're just repeating what we've already done. We think we're creative, but we're not. We're just repeating what we've already done. Because the subconscious can't make up anything new. It can rearrange the pieces. But the superconscious can tell us things that we'd never imagined. And that our process is to escape from the subconscious and to become receptive to the superconscious.
Have you got examples of like artists, geniuses, people that we think like some of the greatest art comes from? That they're accessing the superconscious, or is it?
Invariably. If it's really great art, invariably. That's where all true greatness comes from. Great scientists, great artists, great mathematicians, great musicians. It all comes from the superconscious because that's where real originality comes from. Originality is not doing something that's never been done before. Originality is acting from your own point of origin. And the subconscious is not our point of origin. The subconscious is the accumulated experiences that we've had. Superconscious is the point of origin. That's where real originality comes from. And the other characteristic of the superconscious, it's where unity is experienced. If you think of the fingers of the hand, we live out on the tips, we think we're separate. If you live here, you realize that all come from the same source. Waves on the ocean. Superconscious, if you reverse it like that, when you move into the superconscious, you come into the level not merely of shared experience, but the perceivable unity of all consciousness and of all beings. When art comes from that level, what makes it great is because it presents to us a possibility, the possibility that we are longing for. We are not just longing for, a nice afternoon. We are longing for all freedom from fear, all freedom from suffering. And superconscious promises that. So when Handel received the Hallelujah chorus, he gave it to the world, every time you hear that piece of music, the hallelujahs, no matter how many times you've heard it, you just can't help but be moved because it was a gift from the superconscious. Just as simple as that. And I mean, it's beautiful musically, but what empowers it is how he received it and where it came from. Think of it like this. Now, we have to start from the premise that it's an energy universe, and that even though we look like physical beings, we're actually just a pattern of energy. This is the story of the chakras, which is a whole other story. These are the chakras are the energy blueprint of everything that happens to us. And the chakras are the energy body, and they are the means by which memory, experience, and awakening is carried from one incarnation to the next. Just as I'm dressed in this costume now, later tonight I'll go up into my room and I'll take this dress off and I'll put on my pajamas, but I'll still be me, even though I'll look different. And I could dye my hair and change it and put on makeup and look like this, and I'll appear to be entirely different, but I'm still me inside of it, because there's another reality that is the actual me. So from incarnation to incarnation, we put on these bodies, and we wear them so long that we think that that's who we are. And all the death and return experiences, people are coming back and telling us, no, you take off your body and you're still there just exactly as you are. All of these things are a little far out when you start, like reincarnation, but you just, you just kind of grow into it. You go to the Bhagavad Gita and they talk about that God realized masters return again and again. And they go through, they are self-realized the same as you and me. They had to work their way through everything that we've had to work. They attained the self-realization, and then out of compassion, they continue to come back. And this is who Buddha is, this is who Krishna is, this is who Jesus is, this is who Yogananda is. And it's so much more sensible. And they became that by going through exactly what you and I are going through.
So once you've reached enlightenment in that way, do you retain that? Like, is it? You
can forever. I mean, yes, of course you retain it forever.
Is it possible that you don't retain that?
No, it's not possible, because once you are completely free, there's no karma, there's no unlearned lesson.
Okay.
And so there's no inclination to re-involve yourself.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, but it's a very high state of consciousness. It's not, but that's where we all go. But apparently, and now I'm outside my pay grade, most of the time when you finally attain that, you're done, that's it. But some souls come back. I have honestly no idea what I'm talking about, in the sense that it's just too far beyond me. But everything I can verify up to the edge of that makes sense to me. Yeah. And I experience their living grace, so I know it's there.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it's very real.
I appreciate you talking through that, because I think for me, it's again of that not being able to make that connection and it being so distant and like makes it feel a bit woo-woo to me.
Yes. Oh, no, exactly.
So when it's like that, it's like, it's hard for me to comprehend, but when you explain it that way, it's like, okay, I can see that.
When you pray to the masters and you're in a big mess that you've made for yourself, or I'm in a big mess that I made for myself, it's not merely that they sympathize. They literally said, oh yeah, I remember that. They didn't do it exactly like I did it, but given my state of balance between delusion and enlightenment, this is the natural thing that I would do.
Yeah.
And so they know, because they went through it, and then they know how to get out of it. And there's no judgment. That's how the unconditional love comes.
See, that's a really nice way of articulating prayer and like, forgiveness, and that works really well for me.
Yeah, it works well for me too.
It's more palatable.
That's why I love this teaching. It's just, everything works.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go daffy on it to make it work. In the Bhagavad Gita, and the Bhagavad Gita is essentially the equivalent of the Bible for the whole Indian world, the world of India, because they have reincarnation and God-realized masters and directional development, it's all intact. They have verses where they talk about how do you ever learn these higher teachings. And they just talk about it like this. I'm paraphrasing. At first, you never hear about it because you just never hear about it. Then people around you talk about it, but you don't understand a word they're saying. And then you get to the point where you slightly understand, but you immediately fall asleep because it just doesn't match you. Then you understand, but forget. You understand while they're telling you, but then you forget. And then the next stage is you remember a little. And then you remember more. But how many incarnations does that represent? How many lifetimes of trying out everything else does that represent? It's marvelous, actually. It's also incredibly encouraging. Reincarnation for me has been so much fun because, well, if I don't get it right this time, I get another chance. You know, it's the ultimate, in my case, it relaxes me. I'll do the best I can, but there's no such thing as failure. I'll just get another chance.
Reincarnation, a belief that life doesn't end with death, but is part of a much larger cosmic cycle of learning and evolution. It made me question everything. What then is the true meaning of a single lifetime, and what really happens when we die?
We can hide the gold with a mountain by putting a mountain on top of it, but still under the mountain will be gold. So is our souls. The immortality and the purity of the soul cannot be covered by the mountain heaps of incarnations of bad karma. I want you to know that. Don't you ever call yourself a sinner or anybody else. That is the greatest sin. Just forget it, what you've done in the past, and don't do it again.
This man who used to do, Stephen Levine, who did wonderful work with death and dying, he was a pioneer decades ago. And he would have these retreats for people who had terminal illnesses. And they would first make a list of everything they would miss if they died earlier than they expected. And everybody would cry, and walking my daughter down the aisle, you know, having grandkids, finishing college, depending how young they were, like that. Then you make a list of everything that you wouldn't have to face because you were dying. And everybody thought what they had to work on was what that they were going to miss, but the actual thing they had to work on is, what am I being rescued from by dying early? Because that's really, I mean, naturally, you want to walk your daughter down the aisle and you want to see your children grow up. I mean, that's so natural. You can't tell yourself that I shouldn't feel that. You have to grieve it. You have to mourn it. You have to face it. You have to accept the sorrow. But what's really holding you back is, what do you think you're going to get to avoid? And this is where reincarnation comes in, and this is why it's such a powerful teaching. You're going to have to face it now. Because if you think you're going to postpone it to the future, it's going to be now when it comes. And it's all, that's where you're trapped. But in the past, there was a time when I became very frightened. Just circumstances changed and I became very frightened. And I really had to think about it. You know, like, what if? Because you can't comfort yourself with a lie. I mean, that's the way I've always, you have to be able to look at what is, fearlessly, accept it, and then decide what to do. And you can't just pretend that it's all going to be okay because I have this affirmation over here. But if you don't really believe it in your heart, the affirmation won't have power anyway. You can help bring it to your heart. But I really had to ask myself, what if? What if? And I came to peace with it. But it's also true that I'm creative and energetic and I have a lot of friends. So on a practical level, I probably won't be under a bridge by myself. But what if they all die? I mean, what if suddenly everybody hates me? I mean, things happen. You have karma.
Yeah.
Some karma hits that I didn't expect. What if I stop being so nice? What if I lose my brain?
I think it is a lovely mentality to have, or mindset to have. Some people, especially like I say, mid 20s, 30s of our audience might be caught up in a life where they've got a mortgage to pay and they've got kids, and it's probably quite a difficult thing. To balance trying to do what they feel is the right thing to do, but also make sure that they do provide.
But see, also you have to just look at that like you wouldn't have that karma if it wasn't the right karma for you. You can't just be in rebellion against what God has given you. The law of abundance is gratitude and to make the best of what you have. Oh, I would be generous, I would be hardworking, I would be creative if I just didn't have this mortgage and these children. No, actually, that's not true. You have the mortgage and you have these children, and you have to live at the highest level that you can live at, and you have to be practical in your idealism. But if you constantly are acting as if your karma is a mistake, and if I had somebody else's karma, then I'd be a much better person, there's something wrong with that picture. Comparison is the thief of joy. And you have no idea what the karma is. You have no idea if they're at the end of their good karma and it's about to crash on them, and you're at the end of your bad karma and it's about to change. This life or the one right after it. You know, you just don't know. The whole thing is what is right in front of me. How can I make the best of what's in front of me? And if I want it to be different, I need to work realistically with what I have here. If I'm just thinking I would be better if, there's something wrong with our thinking. It's as simple as that.
Coming into all of these spiritual leaders, teachers, environments, I am always skeptical. I've always led from a science-based perspective. Undeniably so, this conversation with Asha did open my mind, and I think it came from a logical point of view. If we are negative, if we put negativity out into the world, the expectation that you will receive positive back to me, logically, does not make sense. So to put positivity out there, or as Asha would put it, to vibrate positive frequencies, makes sense that you would have positivity come back into your life. If you are unhappy, or as Asha would put it, vibrating at an unhappy frequency, then of course you're going to attract unhappiness and misery into your life. But if you're positive, if you're happy, or as Asha would put it, vibrating at a happy and positive frequency, of course you're going to attract happiness and positivity. Does that mean that life is not going to throw curveballs at you and difficulties at you? No, it does not. But guess what? When you're vibrating or being positive and happy, and something bad happens in your life, but eventually you'll see the positive in it. You'll see the good in it. You'll be able to understand instead of burying it, feeling the pain, and allowing it to be a burden on your life.
But see, this is what's been interesting about this whole conversation is my own answers keep surprising me. I think, why are you answering like that? How did you ever get into that story? Why are you going this direction? No, and really, this has been a most unusual conversation. You know, your magnetism draws different realities out of me.
This documentary was made possible by the support of our sponsor, Marek Health. They helped us travel out to California to capture the story for you. If you want to also help support us, please become a Patreon member with the link down below, where there's 8 hours of content available now if you enjoyed this documentary. And if you want 24 hours early access to any of our interview content, please head over to Spotify and Apple with the links in the description.